Hello everyone, in this video I'm going to solve reading quiz questions and also I will review elasticity. So what is elasticity? Elasticity is the price sensitivity of a product either to quantity demanded or quantity supplied. So let's understand what do we mean by price sensitivity. Let's say for instance the price of a product increases. If the quantity drops too much, that's as you see, we know that law of demand, there is this inverse relation between price and quantity. And if the price increases incremental amount but quantity drops a lot, then the consumers are very sensitive to price change and therefore they are elastic. Now let's think about the inelastic case. Price increases, quantity demanded does not change that much. Then the consumers are not price sensitive. Therefore, we are talking about inelastic product. So we have two types of elasticity, inelastic and elastic. And usually consumers are price sensitive if there are many substitutes of the product. Let's say, for instance, Mountain Dew increased its price by 10%. Probably consumers are very sensitive to change in the price because there are many substitutes for Mountain Dew. There are lots of sodas available in the grocery store. But if you think about a necessity, for example, an extreme example could be an insulin pill. Even the price changes by 10%, consumers are not responsive to a price change because they can't substitute insulin pill with anything else. Therefore, they are not price sensitive. So therefore, price elasticity of demand and price elasticity of supply measures the price sensitivity of consumers and producers. And mostly people are more sensitive if they have more substitutes available for the product that the price increases. But there are other types of elasticities too. We have income elasticity. That means we want to measure the sensitivity of consumers to a change in income. Therefore, when we say elasticity, most of the time you might think about price elasticity of demand and price elasticity of supply, but we can measure elasticity for all determinants of demand and supply as well. So given this information, let's answer the questions in the reading quiz. First question, to calculate price elasticity of demand using the midpoint method, you would use the following approach. So given this information, elasticity is calculated as percentage change, this delta represents change, in quantity divided by percentage change in price. Therefore, the right answer is the first one, percentage change in quantity divided by percentage change in price. For elasticities, quantity is always in the numerator and the price dollar terms always in the denominator. Question 2. And we have another type of elasticity which is called wage elasticity of labor supply and labor demand. So we want to understand how sensitive people are for job market for a change in the wage. So how we calculated percentage change in labor demand or labor supply. In this case it's labor supply, as you see here quantities. And by the way, labor supply represents the people who are looking for a job because they are supplying their service to the market, divided by percentage change in the wage rate. So we want to measure how sensitive to a change in wage people looking for a job. Therefore, it's the percentage change in quantity of labor supply divided by percentage change in wage. Question 3. To calculate price elasticity of supply using the midpoint method, you would use the following approach. Next thing we will discuss here is that we need to understand the price elasticity of supply. The same idea, it's the percentage change, this time quantity supply divided by percentage change in price. But now we are talking about the supplier's sensitivity to price. So let's think about an example. If price increases, the business becoming more profitable, therefore supplier is willing to supply more. And we expect that quantity supply increases more. But how much more is the question. If it increases little bit, then it's inelastic. If the quantity supply increases a lot, then it's elastic. So let's think about a case where the supply is inelastic. For example, think about beachfront property. Beachfront property, as you know, the land is limited. Even if the price increases, the developers, construction companies can only increase their supply to up to a point. Therefore, beachfront property is an inelastic supply. I hope it's clear. If suppliers can wrap up production and then increase the quantity, then probably this good is price elastic. But if there are limitations for the suppliers to increase the quantity, then we're talking about inelastic product. So therefore here the right answer is change in quantity divided by change in price. Question 4. A horizontal demand curve or supply curve would be called. So here we need to understand the shape of the demand curve and how the shape of the demand curve or supply curve determines the elasticity of the product. For demand curve, now we're talking about the demand curve. This is the price, this is the quantity. A horizontal demand curve represents a perfectly elastic demand. Perfectly elastic demand. I hope it's clear why is the case. Price even changes a very small amount, then there is not going to be any demand for that product. At that price we have infinite amount of quantity demanded, but even you change the price very small, very incremental amount, there will be no demand. Therefore, a horizontal demand and also horizontal supply represents a perfectly elastic demand or supply curve. Let's think about another case where we have perfectly inelastic. This is the price, this is the quantity. Now we have perfectly inelastic demand curve. It's vertical on a quantity, let's say this is Q bar. So what does it mean? That means if the price changes, whatever the price, the consumers always buys Q bar quantity. So they are not sensitive to changes in price. So horizontal is perfectly elastic, vertical is perfectly inelastic. So the steeper the demand curve, the more inelastic the curve. The flatter the curve, the more elastic the curve. Question 5. A perfectly inelastic demand curve or supply curve means which one? So here the right answer is already given, but I want you to not to memorize this but understand this. Perfectly inelastic. So whatever the price, okay, price increases in this direction, this is the price. Quantity always the same amount. If it's $10 you buy 100 units, if it's $20 you buy 100 units, or the supply is the same. If it's $10 you supply 100 units, $20 you supply 100 units. So there is no change in quantity demanded or supplied in response to a change in price. Question 6. If demand is blank, then a given percentage rise in price will cause a smaller percentage fall in quantity demanded. Remember, for inelastic goods, we say that price increases, let's say this much, quantity decreases by this much. Okay, for elastic, consumers are very sensitive. Price increases the same amount, but quantity decreases more than the change in price. Therefore, the right answer is inelastic. Question 7. A company discovers a new technology that allows it to substantially reduce its cost of production. Therefore, supply is going to increase because cost of production is one of the determinants, and when it's cheaper, supply is going to increase. The demand for the product is inelastic. So let's draw and see how demand and supply curve looks like. So demand is inelastic, so I'm drawing a steeper curve here, price and quantity. And now we have relatively elastic supply curve. This is S1, this is demand 1. Now because of this change, remember that because technology makes cost of production cheaper, supply is going to increase. Let's say it shifts this much. And now we want to see how this affects the price of the product. So this is the case where you have demand is inelastic. Now let's draw the case where demand is elastic to compare the two cases. So the price and quantity. Now demand is elastic, so it's flatter. And supply is elastic, it's also flatter. And now because of this change, look what happens, supply shifts to the left. This is S2. So now let's compare. The quantity change is much larger when the demand is elastic. The price change, and when you compare to here, look, quantity change is much less when the demand is inelastic. So for sure in both cases the prices are going to decrease. Therefore the right answer is a price decrease. Question 8. In general, supply and demand are often inelastic in the short run. so that shifts in either demand or supply can cause a relatively greater change in price, because this inelastic refers to the situation where consumers and suppliers are not price sensitive. Question 9. How a tax burden is divided between consumers and producers is called tax incidence. Consumers bear most of the tax burden. So here is the rule for this type of question. Inelastic side of the market transaction pays higher tax. So let's understand this on a demand and supply curve. Let's start with understanding the tax incidence. So this is supply, this is demand. Let's say this is the product for pizza, it's $10 and 100 pizzas were sold in the market. And now the government imposes a $1 of tax either to the supplier or to the consumers, doesn't matter. Tax creates a wedge between supply and demand and shifts the price here, this direction, and you need to find a length of the tax line that's equal to $1. So let's say the length of this line is $1. The intersection of the tax line and the demand curve represents the price buyers pay, and the tax line and the supply curve intersection represents what the price sellers receive after tax. So therefore, as you see with the tax introduced in this market, buyers pay higher price and sellers receive less compared to a situation where there is no tax. But here the question is, how much of this tax is paid by buyers and how much of this tax paid by sellers? Because if you impose tax to sellers, they are going to increase the price of their pizza, so they are going to reflect cost of tax to the consumers. And if you impose tax to the people who are consumers, then they are going to reduce their consumption of pizza. In any way, both sides is going to be affected because of the tax, regardless of taxes either imposed to consumers or sellers. But the question is, how much of this tax is going to be paid by suppliers and how much of this tax is going to be paid by buyers? Depends on the elasticity. Let me show one example where demand is inelastic and supply is relatively elastic. So this is the price, this is the quantity. Now I draw inelastic demand curve and then flat supply curve. And let's see tax is here, right? This is the equilibrium price. So look. Now what I said, this is the price paid by buyers. This is the price sellers receive. And as you see, the total amount between PB and PS is the tax. And when you look at this picture, look, from the equilibrium price, because they were paying buyers before paying equilibrium price, to the new price is the tax burden. So this is the buyer's tax burden. And this small part here represents the seller's burden. So the tax amount is $1, but sellers can pass cost to the buyers and they are not losing too much customer. Why? Because demand is inelastic. The consumers are not price sensitive. Therefore, buyers are paying a larger share of the tax burden. So what do we understand from here is that the inelastic sides, because they are less price sensitive, pays a higher portion of the tax that the government imposes. Therefore, let's answer this question. How a tax burden is divided between consumers and producers is called tax incidence. Consumers bear most of the tax burden when demand is inelastic than supply or supply is more elastic than demand. Question 10. Now the question 10 is about income elasticity of demand. Remember, we can calculate elasticity for each determinant of demand and supply. So income is one of the determinant and we can calculate income elasticity of demand as follows: percentage change in quantity demanded divided by percentage change in income. So we want to know if consumers' income increases, how much the quantity demanded changes. Therefore, we need to find out which answer is correct. So percentage change in quantity demanded is correct and the denominator is percentage change in income. So these are the questions from the reading quiz. Now next I'm going to go over some questions on affinity. So let's look at this question, and in this question you are required to calculate elasticity by using midpoint formula. So if you remember, for elasticity we need percentage change in quantity demanded divided by percentage change in price. These were given in most of the questions, but if these percentage changes are not given, we need to calculate the percentage change in quantity and percentage change in price. So let's read the question. The price of coffee changes from $1, so P1 is $1, to P2, $2.5. And initially at this P1, Q1 is 15 cups, and now Q2 is 11 cups. Indicate whether the changes are negative or positive and keep 2 decimals. So because of the law of demand, the result is going to be negative. But for price elasticity of demand, we focus on the absolute number. We do not look at for the negative sign. Now let's calculate using midpoint formula. For midpoint formula, we need percentage change in quantity and percentage change in price. Percentage change in price is calculated as follows: P2 minus P1 divided by P2 plus P1 over 2. That's how we calculate. And if you want this number not decimal but percentage, then you multiply this by 100. So given this, P2 is 2.5 minus 1 divided by the average of these two numbers, which is 3.5 over 2, times 100. Let's find out 3.5 divided by 2. It's this part is 1.75. And now the numerator is 1.5. 1.5 divided by 1.75, which is equal to, this whole thing is equal to 0.8571. And if you multiply this by 100, it's going to be 85.71%. So since the question is asking keep 2 decimals, I keep 2 decimals. Now the next one is we need to calculate the percentage change in quantity. So we have the numbers here, we just need to apply the formula. Let's do it. Percentage change in quantity is equal to Q2 minus Q1 divided by average of these two quantities. And times 100 will give us a percentage. So here the quantity 2 is 11 minus 15 divided by 11 plus 15 over 2. So let's calculate this part first. This is 26 divided by 2 is 13. And here is negative 4. So we need to find negative 4 divided by 13, which is equal to times 100, which is equal to negative 30.76. That's the percentage. So we answer first two questions. Now next we need to find out the elasticity. For elasticity, we need to use this formula. We are going to take percentage change in quantity divided by percentage change in price and then plug the numbers. Percentage change in quantity is negative 30.76 divided by 85.71, which is equal to negative 0.3588. So since we focus on the absolute value of this number, this is 0.3588, which is less than 1. Less than 1 means the product is inelastic. So the right answer is inelastic. Let's check question 10. Here in this question, we need to find the percentage change in quantity demanded. Remember the elasticity formula. Percentage change in quantity demanded divided by percentage change in price. And the elasticity is given 0.5. So therefore, we need to find this part, and also we know that if the price of pomegranates decreased by negative 7%. Now I'm keeping the negative sign here, and I'm going to also keep the negative sign here. Remember, we always focus on the absolute value, but price elasticity of demand is always negative. It's not true for price elasticity of supply. Price elasticity of supply always positive, but price elasticity of demand is always negative. So now we have this formula. We don't know here, but I know this part is negative 7, and I know the result always negative. Therefore, the question mark is negative 0.5 times negative 7. In this case, it is going to be positive 3.5%. So the quantity increases by 3.5%. Let's look at question number 11. So here in this question, you are going to analyze the relation between revenue and elasticity. So it's not that complicated. For just remember, total revenue is price times quantity. And for a business, you need to find out whether you need to decrease the price to increase the revenue or increase the price to increase the revenue. That depends on the elasticity. If you decrease the price, you can sell a lot more than before. Therefore, you can increase the revenue. Or you can increase the price and still sell similar amounts or a little bit less and still can increase the total revenue. So the question to whether to increase the price or decrease the price depends on the elasticity. So if the product is demand elastic, then we know that if you decrease the price, you will gain a lot from selling more. So maybe you are going to decrease the price this much, but quantity demanded is going to increase more than the change in the price. Therefore, your total revenue is going to increase because the dominant factor here is the increase in quantity. But if the product is price inelastic, if you decrease the price, quantity demanded increases. If you decrease the price, quantity demanded increases very little, and the dominant will be the change in price. Therefore, total revenue is going to decrease. In order to fix this for inelastic good, you should increase the price and quantity demanded decreases little. Therefore, change in price dominates in total revenue and total revenue increases. So as a summary, for elastic products, you need to decrease the price to increase revenue. For inelastic products, you need to increase the price to increase revenue. So this question is about understanding this relation. And here the quantity and prices are given. First, we need to find out how much revenue is generated when the firm sells 50 goods. So total revenue is price times quantity. Total revenue is equal to 50 times $18, which in this case $900. And next we need to find out how much revenue is earned when the firm sells 48 goods. So again, we are going to calculate total revenue, this time 48 times 30, 1,440. So by increasing the price, in this case from $18 to $30, in fact, the company increases its revenue from 900 to 1,440. The reason, because as you see, the quantity demanded doesn't go too much down. Price increases almost to twice, but the change in quantity demanded is very small, so you didn't lose your customers by increasing the price. Therefore, you increase the total revenue. And now let's calculate the price elasticity of demand, and we will find out that this product is actually inelastic using the midpoint formula. So remember the midpoint formula. We need first change in prices, 30 minus 18 divided by 30 plus 18 over 2 times 100. And that's equal to, this is 12, this is 24, times 100 is around 0.5 or 50%, because you're multiplying by 100, 50%. And now let's calculate the change in quantity, which is 48 minus 50 divided by 48 plus 50 over 2 times 100. In this case, it's negative 2 divided by, it's negative 4.08%. So the price elasticity is negative 4.08 divided by 50%, which is less than 1. As you see, it is inelastic. For inelastic goods, you need to increase the price to increase the revenue. So this is all about for chapter 5. I hope this video is helpful. Thank you.